Welcome to the Starter Girlz podcast, the show dedicated to the Starter Girl. She's an achiever, she's a creator, she's a magic maker, she's a dreamer, and she is doing all the things. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and welcome to this episode. All right, welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz podcast. I'm so excited that you are here today, tuning in. We've got a fabulous guest on here. And like I always say on the Starter Girlz, this show is all about empowering you to live your best life in your career, relationships, your money, and your health and well-being. And so my guest today, I think, is going to be, first of all, I have to say she's just got a great sense of humor. I love her wittiness and her fun and energy and sass. And I don't know what all the words are with that, but I love when I meet people like this. But she's doing some amazing things. And so I'm excited to chat with her and let her share her wealth of knowledge. And so she's a seasoned executive, an author, and the founder of Aligned Workplace. With 30 plus years of leadership in diverse industries, she's conquered challenges from saving a social welfare agency to monitoring entrepreneurs. Ilene's resilience, humor, and wisdom inspires transformation, guiding leaders to bounce back, innovate, and create winning workplaces. So Ilene Marcus, welcome to the Starter Girlz podcast. We are so excited you are here today.
I am so excited to be here. It's been quite a journey for me and Jennifer to get here. So we're glad we're here.
I know sometimes, I think that, what is that saying? The third time's the charm or whatever. I mean, sometimes I think, you just got to persist a little longer to make things happen. And we've had to, for whatever reason, with technology this week. So yes, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into this because I know you've got things you're passionate about talking about, but I want to, because one of the things that, I mentioned early on, like I said, I love your sense of humor. And I think that is so important. I just finished reading a book, and this guy was actually on my other show that I do. His name's James Bond, believe it or not. James Bond, he makes the joke that, he's, when you talk to him. But he wrote a book called Brain Glue and How to Make Ideas Stick. And one of the things he talks about in there is humor, like making humor to get to do sales presentations and to get people to pay attention to you. And I've had several comedians come on here and we always talk about that. So I think it's such a great thing when you can find humor in the things that you do, because it really lightens the spirit and it gets people really interested in you and what you have to say.
Yeah, I think so. But I think the thing about humor is you can't try. It has to come from within. It has to, and I didn't realize that was one of my superpowers or one of my gifts. I really tried to be serious and help people and professional and present myself. But it is my humor when I started managing people that made me realize, wow, I can get them to do what needs to get done. I can get them out of their own way. I can get them to see something by giving them a funny story, by explaining it in a way that they would never had it explained before. I use cooking because I am a Jewish mother and I like to cook. So I use cooking a lot as a way of explaining everything, even what's called unit economics to entrepreneurs, the cost of doing your business. I compare it to the cost of making a chicken soup. What's the actual cost? And people remember that and get it. Oh, did I count the carrots? Did I count the tomatoes? Oh, wait, the cost of running the electricity on my stove. It's not just what I bought at the store. So yeah, I think the humor's got to be, it's got to spring up and then it's real. And then people remember it in the moment.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And I think you found your gift. I think that's really what we're saying here is that because, you can't force something that isn't there. And I think the beauty of this is when you figure out what that gift is that you have and you can utilize that to your advantage, whether it's selling something or in your case, as you said, getting people to move or using your recipes to kind of bring an awareness to people. And there's so much of this. I'm listening to everything you just said. And now I'm going back through that book and thinking about all the parts he talked about, these different tools and techniques of how we differentiate ourselves. We tie them to things that people can remember. And then they go, oh yeah, Ilene, she's the one that talks about the soup, or she's the one that uses the funny in what she's talking about. So I love it. I think it's awesome that you're able to do that.
I also think that when we can laugh at ourselves, I have a tagline that says, you'll laugh, you'll cringe, you'll change. And when you laugh at yourself, you're really understanding it on a deeper level. That's why comedians are so funny. They walk that edge of what's not really politically correct or what you don't want to say or what you don't want to see. And I think that works in all walks of life. So it's really about getting into people really thinking about, why am I doing that? And do I want to do that? And what do other people see when I do that? And that's why I think that laughter is so important, because when you can laugh at yourself, and the term is where life is a loose garment, all of a sudden everything's easier. People flock around you. Instead of repelling, you're attracting. Instead of trying so hard, you're just living and being yourself. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that you said that. So thank you for that, because I do agree. When you come in, you're a lot more lighthearted, and people aren't going to feel as though, I want to say, walking on eggshells when they're around you, that they may offend you or not do the right thing, right? You're basically opening up the space for them to kind of be who they are around you. So I think it's really good that you're saying that. So I want to start off, because I know one of the things you're passionate about talking about is getting out of your way, your own way. And so I kind of want to start right there, because I think this is an important topic. And you're kind of talking about that right now when you're saying make humor in your day, right? And I will open up with this. And I've said this several times on different episodes within the podcast. I've been running podcasts since 2019. I started my first show pre-pandemic, and this is the Starter Girlz. This was the original show that I started pre-pandemic. It's taken many twists, many turns. I've brought co-hosts in, they've left. I've kept it going. But one of the things is so interesting is I've left whatever old episodes that were started way back then, they're out there. You can still find them. And I encourage people to go back and look at them. And it's not because I want to say, hey, look how long I've been doing this. It's more that I want to give people hope that when you learn to, one, stick with something and be persistent, you can grow from it, but also that I have been okay with all the stupidness in it, meaning all the blunders and the crazy things and the learning, just learning how to interview people and get in front of people. And I, in the very beginning, remember laughing at myself all the time, because I would get hung up on a buzzword. Like I might say, that's awesome, or 100%, and I would say it over and over. And I realized my colleagues were kind of laughing at me too. And so we started making a joke out of it. I started saying, how many times can I say that word in an episode, right? I took the emphasis off of it, but made it fun, right? Made it fun. And what was interesting is I sort of stopped doing it. I kind of just stopped doing that behavior, And so I've had to learn to really just embrace the journey and laugh at myself along the way. And that's why I leave those episodes there, because I want to say, hey, look, go back to the beginning and you can see the all the transitions, all the movements, all the way through these shows.
You just said so much in there. So we're going to unpack it piece by piece. The first thing is, I know for myself that when I started doing this in an act of desperation, like most people. I had a very successful career. My boss was caught for stealing. He was a beloved. It was like on the front of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. I was living in New York City, and he was caught stealing, and I was collateral damage. I lost my job for really no reason of my own. Should I have known he was stealing? How can you know? When you're running a $165 million agency, you got 40 balls in the air. He's doing his thing. But the reason I say that is I started managing annoying people because I realized it's not about working with ethical and competent people, which ended up being the case for me, but it was really about how to work with people who can annoy you and take your energy away. And when I look at that old stuff now, I'm like, there's gold in them there hills. I had the ideas and the things that I still talk about today. And now there are a lot of people talking about how to get out of the way of people that bother you, how to deal with difficult people, how to have a successful team, how to get rid of burnout. And all of this was encompassed for me over 8 years ago. So that stuff that you did early on was raw and it was gut and you were finding your way, but it also shows your brilliance and it shows who you are. So that founding stuff, I think, is really important. Now, the second piece you talked about is I look at myself and I say, I can't believe I did that. I mean, I could do that with a haircut, with a book color, with anything. And I think that is exactly right. We all I always say, I'm going to start a business where people can come to me and say, am I making a mistake? Like, this isn't business, but, let's take like Oscar dresses. What were they thinking? Like, did they ask anybody? Sometimes, or there's a commercial or a tagline for product. You're like, what were they thinking?
Right.
just to ask people. So I think sometimes it's really fun to go back and say, oh, I've grown. But that's the point. We all grow. We all grow, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly. We all grow. So I think that old stuff is really there too. But the getting out of your own way is really about being able to see forward. What aren't I getting with my current skills? There's a very famous artist now, Jelly Roll, and he says what I've been trying to say for years corporately really well. If you haven't heard Jelly Roll, he says, look forward. The rearview mirror is smaller for a reason. Look forward. So if you're stuck, if you're not moving, to go through with that metaphor of like traffic, if you're not moving, look at what you're doing that's keeping you stuck. Am I always bringing up my ideas at the same time? Am I always talking to the same people? Am I always looking at it through one lens? Do I have blind spots? I call it BS. Do I have blind spots that I don't see about me so that I can move forward? So yes, I think getting out of your own way is really an honest assessment about where am I going, and is my current skill set and the people I'm surrounding myself with getting me there?
Yeah. And I think this is a really tough subject for some people. I think, like, I don't know about you, but for me, moving forward is not really a hard thing for me. I'm not one to get stuck in the past. I do look at things, and I like to say, and maybe this is my viewpoint on things, is that when things happen, I try to find the lesson in them. I try to look at the situation and go, okay, this didn't work out. This sucks. I don't like it. Let me be mad about it for a period of time, but I'm going to give myself a time limit. Like, we're going to stew on this maybe 24 hours. When I get up tomorrow, we're over it. Like, we're moving on. Like, I don't have energy for this. Right. And so for me, this is a very easy thing in most cases, unless this is a super big decision, right, to move forward. But I think a lot of people do get stuck in the past. They get hung up on something. And I don't know about you, but like when I work with people, I think a lot of it is this shame and this guilt and this, like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Like, and then it becomes a reflection of their character, right? Like who they are now as the individual. And it was just a mistake. It was just something that happened, right? And we got to move forward and just, you made a dumb mistake. We all do it, right? Like we all do dumb things.
We all do it. So once again, so the thing about moving forward, and I think you're unusual and healthy,
Yeah.
and that's right. Like people should follow that. Listen to what you're saying. I often work with CEOs who, have a decision that's, made a problem. And I tell them, write down everything you're thinking. And let me tell you, after 5 minutes, no matter how long I give them, they start repeating themselves. So yeah, 24 hours is a good time frame. If you can't clear it, in that time, I'm trained as a social worker, it's probably a deeper issue. You might need a little therapy, but you should be able to clear it. But I wrote a post years ago, and it's still a very popular post on my blog called Fear Move or Career Move. Are you running away? So are you leaving it behind because it didn't work and you're running from it? Or are you really being strategic about where you're going? So I think when we run away from something and don't look backwards, we just have to be really sure that we're closing it up and making sure we're making a strategic move, a career move, a life move, not a fear move, because we've all done that. Oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to take that job. It looks better, but it's not better. And we end up in the same cycle.
Entrepreneurs, are you ready to level up your leadership skills? Tune in now for an exclusive offer designed just for you. This is my time. Did you know 63% of consumers prefer businesses aligned with their values? Recognizing your core values isn't just vital for business growth, it's the bedrock of effective leadership. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is a key step in constructing the framework of a successful leader, enabling you to lead authentically, expand your business, and live life on your terms.
I never settled on play, putting the kettle to flame. I go 100 all day, foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid on my dues, waited in line, 8, 7.
Are you ready to access tools to kickstart your leadership journey? Unlock a treasure trove of insights and get your free resources at www.linktree/Jennifer Loehding. Take that crucial first step toward realizing your leadership aspirations and elevate your leadership game today.
Now, the thing about mistakes, I have a philosophy on mistakes. What is the purpose of a mistake?
For me, I would say to learn something. I would think to gain some knowledge.
I think so. But I always say the purpose of the mistake is to make a different one next time, because you are going to make a mistake. So when people say do one, learn one, it doesn't happen that way. I have a favorite book that I use when I go out to speak, especially to corporations when they're starting a new project, when they have new teams, when they're launching a project. And it's a book called, I forgot, it's my favorite book, but it's about every business mistake that turned into a multi-million-dollar thing.
Great.
So everything from chocolate chip cookies to Post-it notes to, I can't even think about what else right now, maybe buttonholes, right? Were all originally a mistake. So mistakes really do what you said before. What is the lesson or what is the blessing, right? Even if you don't believe in God, there's a reason sometimes you learn that mistake. A blessing meaning, oh, I got that. I don't have to do it again. It doesn't have to be a religious thing. It's just like, wow, learned that. Or, oh, what do I have to learn moving forward? Either I was taken care of or I learned something. So I think mistakes are really important. But when people really get stuck in them, I think a lot of times it goes to who you surround yourself with. Yeah. If you're surrounding yourself with people who live in shame, or that's the culture, we talk a lot about corporate culture, family culture now, right? It's all changing. But the question really is, where are you comfortable? Because what is your culture? The other day, my daughter and her partner bought a new car, and he called to put her on the insurance. She's currently not on the insurance. You know, they live in New York City. She didn't need a car. He had a car. And they called, and he goes to put her on the insurance, and he gets off the call and says, oh, so your license is suspended, right? And he's like, oh, well, we heard him on the call. I'm sorry. He says, oh, her license is suspended? Okay, don't add her at this time. No drama. He goes to her, Samantha, your license is suspended. She goes, wow, I wonder why. I got to check into that. Let me go make an appointment. They turn to me, and I'm like, yeah, good thing you're checking into it. Now, I think about the culture I came from, the family I grew up in. What's wrong with you? The money, the this, you go sit in the dog. It would have ruined the entire day, because her license, right? She didn't take a vision test. Something got lost in COVID, whatever. But it's correctable, whether it costs money or not. But that's what I mean by culture. Are you going to a culture of, what did he do wrong? Pointing fingers, that toxic thing. Or are you saying, wow, that was a mistake. Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. Or, wow, I did it. I hope someone can learn from me. So I think mistakes, if we grew up, and a lot of us did, and to this day, first generation immigrant families come with a lot of that pressure of, this is the way it was. We want to be perfect here. We want to earn our place here. We want to do it right. We want to be successful. So I don't think it's just for those of us that grew up with parents who are Holocaust survivors or survived World War II. I think it happens with current immigrants and a lot of people who say, wow, I have to be perfect. Mistakes are just that. And you've got to learn to let go of them. And it's the hardest thing, I think, to do, because you would say to a friend, okay, no big deal. But do we say that to ourselves?
Yeah, there's so much to this as you were talking. I mean, I think there's so much we could unpack with this. I agree with you. I think if you really, thanks for talking about the circle, because I do think, yes, a lot of it does come with how you were brought up and then who you're currently hanging around with. And you're right, because you could take that same, you could make a mistake and you could look at your friend who would make that mistake and you would say, you made a mistake. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world, right? And then you might make that same mistake and you put this unneeded pressure on yourself of why you made that mistake. So I think when I work with people, I feel like it really comes back to this whole idea of the mistake starts to equal bad person, right? Like the mistake defines the person. Instead of the mistake was a mistake, it does not define the character of the person. It was a mistake. And that's how I have to really, and when I tell you, when you told me early on, like I'm kind of a unique person, well, we all know about the DISC personalities. I'm a very high D, so I'm a decision maker. I get mad about things. I'm ticked off for a little while, like I said, maybe 24 hours. But then my next immediate step is what's the next thing I need to do from there? Yes, I realize there's only 10% of us in the population that do that. But I do think it's also been kind of a journey of gaining self-respect and self-worth, right? Like the more that you start to embrace yourself, who you are, all of those things, I think you give yourself permission to make mistakes, right? The more you take risk, the more you build your confidence, then you can work on your self-worth. I think you allow yourself the room to say, if I screw up, on this. If I make a mistake, I'm willing to own the consequence of the mistake. If it becomes an error, I'm willing to take the good and the bad with that, because it's not going to define me. It's not going to make me a bad person. I'm okay with it. And see, that's what I think that's the place where I feel like I'm kind of where I kind of, have gotten to where I'm like, I'm okay. If I screw that up, I screw it up. I don't think I'm bad at the end of the day. I'm still lovable. People still like me. Right. And that's what I really, like when I listen to people that fear this, it's like, that's where I want you to see this, is that it's not a do or die situation. And I had a mentor that I worked with. I've had a lot of mentors, but I had a mentor that I worked with recently for 2 years, great mentor. And he always said, like when you think of something that's bad, you ask yourself, to what extent is it really bad? Because we put the metric on that, right? Like that whole experience, it's how we perceive it. We put the whole story and the package and everything together, but how bad is it really?
Exactly. And, you're talking a lot about external versus internal validation, right? What do we value about ourselves? And we started this, your entire purpose, Jennifer, is to help people empower themselves so they could do better in their money, their personality, you. And empowering yourself means knowing yourself, knowing your risk tolerance, knowing that I know I'm going to make mistakes. I used to think I was going to be perfect. I'm never going to make a mistake. And within that, you're holding on so tight that everything around you becomes so rigid. So the ability to let go, and exactly right, like, I have a crudeness to it, so I'm not going to say it. But when someone says, oh, that was a mistake, I'm like, I didn't, drain the bank account, crash the car, or do anything illegal. So what's the standard really, right? Okay, we got the data. It was, it was the best we could do at the time. And I think you're right. A lot of people talk now about vulnerability and showing vulnerability. And I think it's all great. The world is such a different place than when I was trained as a social worker 20 years ago, or what's happening, since 9/11, that a lot of people understand trauma and workplace and things that can happen. But that process of actually learning to accept yourself, of letting go of what's in your way, is what a lot of people don't talk about. They talk about let go, be vulnerable, but they don't say, what does that look like in the interim? And it looks messy. And that is why all these Netflix shows and this new one that everybody cannot turn around from, Baby Reindeer, because it's messy. It's messy. And you're watching someone, I think this, but I do this. I want this, but I do that. I still want this, but I can't stop doing that. Mm-hmm. And that is the reality. So the more of us that talk about, yeah, that was a big mess, and this is how I got out of it. This is what I wanted to do. I got myself kicked out of an important meeting because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. That's a true story. I got myself kicked out of but this is how I recovered from it, right? Yeah. How we talk about those things gives other people that permission. There's something called hope, and when we talk about hope, we talk about hearing other people's experience. Mm-hmm. So it helps us to say, wow, they lived through it. I can live through it too. So I think it's really a very important skill to know that I'm going to make mistakes, and how I recover. What's that old song? I'm really on songs and music today. That old song about it's not the cards you're dealt, it's how you play them. Yeah. It's how you play them.
Yeah, this is all good, Ilene. Thank you so much. I think this is all good. I would love to ask you, we've talked about giving yourself time frames. We've talked about accepting mistakes and learning from them and learning to move past. So for anybody that's maybe in that stuck place right now, and we all know that I always say people do things for reasons. We have a reason that we procrastinate. We have a reason that we don't make the phone call, or we don't, take care of the necessary steps. And I'm studying a lot right now about nervous system regulation, which when you really understand that and how it works with our belief system and why we do the things that we do, and it all makes sense. It all comes together. And so I would just love to know from your perspective, for maybe somebody who's sitting in that place of stuckness, right? And we need to move them forward. What is maybe a tip or two that you could say to them to help propel them on that forward movement?
Yeah. So the first thing I say is take a turn. And I think you froze. Oh, there you are. Take a turn, right? Find your BS, your blind spots. I mean, turn around. I drive a pretty high-tech car, and even that car has blind spots. Look Purposely look for what you're not seeing. Don't, I run into people all the time. I've done this, I've done everything right, everything, I don't know what went wrong. Okay, but we're in this place where it's not right. So something went wrong, whether you did it or not. So take a 360, literally turn around and say, what didn't I see? What didn't I see? Or what can I see differently? What maybe can I look at from a different viewpoint? Stand in someone else's shoes, which brings me to my second favorite thing, Goldilocks it. What do I mean when I say Goldilocks? We all know the story of Goldilocks. 3 bears, right? This woman is hiking through the woods. Her water bottle's empty. She comes upon a cottage. She goes in, and there's 3, plates of porridge, and one is too hot, and one is too cold, and one is just right. And then there's 3 chairs, and one is too hard, and one is too soft, and one is just right. So first is what we were talking about, know yourself, what's right for you. But more important, what we forget about Goldilocks is she was trespassing. She was in someone else's house. Don't do that. As soon as we go to that place that we don't like what it is and we're stuck, it's usually because we're pointing our finger at somebody else. We're looking externally. We're trespassing into, why did she drive quick by me? Why did she get that? Why? Instead of saying, wait, what's happening? What aren't I doing? So do not trespass into other people's business. It used to be mind your own business.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane and stay with this discomfort. Don't cover it up. Don't numb it. Stay there. First, look for it. Really deep look. What aren't I seeing? What are my blind spots? And then sit with it. Don't, that old thing when you're pointing the finger, you got 3 back at you. Really sit with that discomfort. And all of a sudden, you will see something you did not see before. And, those are the moments I say I love. People say, why do you do this work? What do you get out of it? I'm like, for those moments when someone says, oh, it wasn't them, it was me.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. It's how I've been walking into that meeting. It's not that they all hate me. It's that, I come in with my papers, my coffee. I'm coming in like a nightmare. I'm, not a nightmare, like a hurricane where you are a tornado, right? And no wonder they're responding to me. Maybe I am doing something. And it can be that simple.
Yeah, I love it. And what I'm hearing you say is just advocating for being mindful of how you're contributing to the situation, right? Really taking stock of your contribution in this, what's happening right now. Because I think so often people tend to do what you said, point fingers, immediately be reactionary, right? They react to something that happened instead of pausing. I've talked about this several times. I know it's hard, but just taking that pause for a moment and looking and saying, how am I contributing to this situation right now? Right? Like, what am I doing here? What are my blind spots? So thank you for sharing that. I think I think we all come from, we all kind of say the same things. And I love that we can all say them in different ways. And that's what I think is so great about what we do here is that we get to share these things with people in different ways. And you bring humor to it, which I love, and make it fun and sassy. And like being like listening to you, I'm like, okay, you're the type of person I could probably just sit down and drink tea or coffee or whatever. I don't know. Sit at the bar and drink a drink, like you're just that kind of fun energy. And I love it. And that's what I think is when you get in a place where you feel okay with that, it's everything we're talking about here, accepting the mistakes and being able to take stock of your own stuff and sit in it and embrace it and realize, hey, I messed up here and it's okay. I can pivot. I can move a different direction, So thank you for all of this. It's been incredible. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to pick up a book, they want to see what's going on in your world, follow you, who knows, where do you want us to send them?
You can send them if they're business and they're doing LinkedIn, which they should. You can send them to Ilene Marcus, ILENE Marcus on LinkedIn, or you can send them to my, if you Google in managing annoying people, I pretty much pop right up. You can find my website and my book on Amazon and all that stuff. And I just want to say, I'm working on my second book. I'm finally making progress, which my first book is Managing Annoying People, the team, which is really about what am I doing in the situation. But my next book, and we haven't gotten a name yet, so I'll loop back with you when I need some input on that. But it's about managing myself, really managing annoying me. How do I get out of my own way? How do I laugh at the things I do? So I look forward to sharing that with you. But yeah. Ilene Marcus, Managing People, reach out.
I love it that you're doing the 2 books on that, because I think both are important. They really kind of round it out, because it takes a team to make things work and it takes a team to mess things up. It's not a one-person thing, right? I love it. I love it. And I'm definitely going to keep in touch with you because I want to keep up with what you're doing and all of that good stuff. So thanks for sharing all of your pages and all that. We'll make sure when this goes out that we get all that together. So it's been fun. Thank you. And of course, to our audience, we love you, appreciate you, grateful that you're tuning in. And if you enjoy the show, of course, head on over to Apple. You can give us a review there. You can hit that subscribe button on the YouTube so we can keep sharing all this fabulous content. And as I always say, you guys, be kind to one another and be kind to yourself, and we will see you next time.